Hello friends, once again I welcome you on my YouTube channel English with Rajbir. Today we are going to discuss on the topic how to speak English fluently. How to speak English fluently. How to speak English, or you can say in other words. I have put this English in parentheses or in brackets because English is a language, and we will discuss later on why I have put this particular word English in parentheses. Now come to the point. What is the things that hinders us to speak English, or what are the other factors because of those we cannot speak English, and what are the factors by sticking to those points we can speak English fluently? Our first point is, what is language? What language is, you can say. Language is simple communication, conveying the ideas to others is language. We can say that if we are uh, talking to someone and that person is understanding us, then it's a language. What is the purpose of language, or you can say, why do we speak it? What is the purpose of language? Language is simply conveying the ideas to others. Then why do we speak English? What is the purpose of speaking English? The simple fact that I would like to tell you is that every person, whoever would like to speak English, Hindi, Haryanvi, whatever dialect or language he would like to speak, just he would like to convey his innermost feelings to others. And that person, if he is conveying his ideas to others, then the purpose of language comes to an end. Or you can say that he would like to say his feelings to others, and he has completed his purpose of conveying the ideas to other persons, then the purpose of language comes to an end. We are simply discussing about what language is, because these points are going to be very handy in the further course of our language learning or acquisitions. What How can we speak a language, and what are the factors we cannot speak English, and what are the things because of which we can speak English. Now come to the main point. The main point is that why we cannot speak English. This is the most common fact that rounds about why we cannot speak English. I have pointed out 3 or 4 points about why we cannot speak English. Later on we will discuss also how we can speak English, but now in this point we will discuss what are the things that hinders us to speak English. Why cannot we speak English? Now first point is fear of second language. You all know very well that English is a second language, Hindi is our primary language. So when we learn second language, we constantly have fear in our mind. We cannot speak because it is our second language. Like the same way, if you ask the Britishers to speak Hindi, then definitely he will think that it's second language. He will also face difficulties, some types of difficulties, and that fear constantly hovers around our mind, that it is second language, and that's why we cannot speak English. Second point, hesitation of mistakes. This is the biggest blunder we Indians commit. We hesitate to speak English. Do you know why we hesitate? We hesitate to speak English because we think that if we start speaking English, then definitely what will happen? We will commit mistakes, and in order to avoid mistakes, we stop speaking English. We constantly has a hesitation, and the hesitation is that we will never be able to speak out our views, because if we start speaking our views, then definitely we will commit mistakes, and in order to committing the mistakes, we avoid English language. Third point is what others will think about us. If I'm talking to you, if I'm telling something to you about how to speak English or how to improve your spoken skills, then I may also think that I may commit mistakes. But if I start thinking like this, then definitely I will never be able to speak out my views, because if you go to the other people, they will think, if you speak correctly, if you commit mistakes, then definitely they have so many comments to make. Don't think about the people, just start speaking. You will commit mistakes, sure, but English, always keep in mind that English is our second language. Even a Britishers cannot speak Hindi properly, then how can we speak English properly? Just avoid this point and start speaking English. Next point, Indians habit of finding fault. It is one of another factors we cannot speak English. We Indians have an habit. I am telling something to you, and there are so many people who know English very well, and they have an excellent knowledge of grammatical mistakes, and like the same way, and they will start finding out mistakes where he commits mistakes. He commits mistake here, that person commits mistake. Like the same way, it is applicable in our life also. When we start speaking, then there are so many people who are sitting around us, and what they do, they start finding the mistakes. That person has committed 100 mistakes, that person has committed 20 mistakes, that person has committed 5 mistakes. This is an habit. We will have to remove this habit of finding mistakes, because if you think that people are finding the mistakes, then how can we say that that person will be able to speak out his views openly? If he start pointing out the mistakes, if he start that I will commit mistakes, if he has a constant fear in his mind that if he speaks and other will find out the mistakes, is it possible he is able to convey his ideas to other? He either he is able to convey his ideas, or he is able to avoiding the mistakes. He gets confused, and that's why he cannot speak English. This is an habit. We will have to remove this habit of finding faults, because no one is perfect. If I'm speaking, I'll commit mistake. If other are speaking, they will commit mistakes. Ignore all these mistakes, and if you are able to ignore these mistakes, then definitely you will be able to be a fluent speaker. Why I'm talking about avoiding these habits of finding mistakes, hesitation of mistakes? Because friends, I have told you earlier that English is a language, and the mean of language is to conveying our ideas to others. We just would like to convey our ideas to others. If I commit mistake and I am able to convey my ideas to others, then the purpose of my language speaking comes to an end. If I ask a student, where are you going? And the student says that, so I'm going to school. And another student says that going to school. Another one says that school. Do you think these three students have committed mistakes? Even a single student hasn't committed mistake, because all the three students were saying that we are going to school, and these three students conveyed their ideas differently, but they conveyed the ideas. This is the purpose of language. If we start finding the mistakes, we will never be able to speak out our views. Now the most important topic that I would like to convey to you, that is how can we speak languages. Now come to this point, I'm not talking about English language. How can we speak languages? It is applicable to all the languages, or you can say that these 3 points are universal in learning any language. I'm not talking about Hindi language, I'm not talking about English language, I'm not talking about Punjabi, or I'm not talking about Haryanvi dialect, whatever you would like to speak. First point is language is an imitation. Language is an imitation. How can we come to know about this language is an imitation? Language is learnt by us through imitating the others. I'm speaking Hindi, I'm speaking Haryanvi, just because of this imitations. I imitated the people all around me, and I started speaking the same language or dialect which was spoken in front of me. That was just an imitation. I didn't try to learn even a single thing, just I imitated the points. I just imitated the vocabulary, and when I started speaking that particular language or dialect which was exposed in front of me. Language is an imitation. As I discussed, we speak Hindi, Haryanvi, Punjabi. An interesting fact I would like to share in front of you. Friends, a child started speaking at the age of 3 or 2.5. Which language? The same language which is exposed to him or her. If that particular child is exposed to Hindi language, he will speak Hindi. If the child is exposed French language, he will start speaking French language. And if a child is put in such a place where no language is spoken, he will never be able to speak even a single language. Why? Because language is learned through imitations. We imitate other, we listen the people, and after that we start speaking, because it is just an area of imitation. Next point is exposure. Why exposure is important? Because God has given us 2 ears to listen to and only one mouth to speak. We should listen more and speak less. And if we are able to do this, then definitely we will be exposed of that particular language which we would like to speak. That's why exposure is an extremely fact. English or any other language, whatever language you would like to speak, you will have to stick to that particular language. You will have to get an exposure of that particular language. Only then it can be expected from you that you will speak that particular language. Next point is create an atmosphere and start speaking. How can we create an atmosphere? If in a family there are 4 people, and in these 4 peoples, if 2 are well versed in speaking English, then you should convey your ideas in English with, you should start sharing your ideas with those people. If you have friend, you should start discussing your ideas with your friends. If you are in a class, you should start discussing with your friends in English. If you are at a working place, then you should start discussing with your colleagues in English language. You yourself will have to create an atmosphere if you would like to speak it, because atmosphere plays an extremely crucial and important role in grabbing the language, whatever the language it may be. It happens sometimes. There are so many people who complain that we don't have an atmosphere of speaking community. I do admit it. In a family, there may be so many people who don't know how to speak English, but it doesn't mean that you don't get an atmosphere. You yourself can communicate with yourself. You should talk to yourself. I'm not talking to sit in front of the mirror and start talking to yourself, but sit alone and start talking to yourself. This is the best practice you can put, and after that you will see the drastic result, excellent results you will see. Because there are so many people who start complaining that sir, we don't have an atmosphere because in I live in such a community where English is not spoken, and like this, such are the comments which we get again and again. But I would like to share my own example. I was born to an illiterate parents. They don't know how to write their names, but even then I'm speaking English. Whether I commit mistake or not, it doesn't matter. I don't think about all these things. If I speak, I commit mistakes. If I'm speaking the second language, I have made up my mentality that if I start speaking the second language, it is natural. We will commit mistake. If I started complaining like this, that I don't have an exposure, I cannot communicate with the people, then was it possible to speak English? English can be spoken. I'm not talking about English. Punjabi can be spoken, German can be spoken, French can be spoken, Portuguese can be spoken, Japanese can be spoken. But You will have to talk yourself, you will have to create an atmosphere, you will have to create an exposure. To get an exposure, you can listen to the news, you can watch English movies, you can listen to the English music. There are so many options. If you don't have people to communicate with, then there are so many options. You can uh, start watching televisions, you can start watching movies, and there are so many things that you can do to improve your spoken skills. These are the some points with which I would like to tell about how to improve your spoken skills. Like this, there are so many points. Different people will say differently about improving your spoken skills, but you will have to stick to one point at somewhere, and then you start practicing English. You will speak English fluently, I assure you. Because one or two points, stop these hesitations. If I speak English, then I will commit mistakes. Mistakes will be committed. No one is perfect in this world, and even a single day you cannot be perfect. Stop finding faults. If anyone is speaking, you should try to motivate that person in spite of finding faults, because we Indians have a habit of finding faults. Please stop this finding fault habit, and then you will see the drastic results. You will speak English, I assure you. And in next video I will again come with some interesting facts. How can you improve your English, how can you improve your spoken skills? And by that time, keep practicing and subscribe my channel, like it and share it. Thanks.